Though many in this people might find it hard to believe, there's an intense debate raging about whether intervention is important and necessary. Some argue that the policies are inconsistent and not coming from a place of truth. And some cite recent examples for the importance of intervention, such as Germany's concentration camps during World War II, the Rwandan tragedy, Darfur, Sudan. Others who speak against intervention point towards, of course, the examples of Iraq and Afghanistan. When the French group Doctors Without Borders was founded because dozens of young French volunteer doctors couldn't get the Red Cross to speak out against Nigeria in the 60s, quote, classic humanitarianism protects the victims and accepts massacres as a reality, writes Bernard Kouchner, one of the doctors who founded Doctors Without Borders. Modern humanitarianism accepts no such thing. Its ambition is to prevent the massacres. I am arguing for the limits of humanitarian aid, Kouchner once told a student reporter. It is not the humanitarian that is needed now, it is the military. If we do not find common values to create a common mechanism, we shall have to cure again and again wars of desolation, always too late. A few years ago in 1998, a younger man by the name of Michael Ignatieff, in his book The Warrior's Honor, Ethnic War and the Modern Conscience, a book that became essential reading in the human rights community, wrote and warned us against the temptation to feel totally separate from raggedy-looking people who seem to have nothing better to do in life than hack each other to death. He talked about the seductiveness of moral disgust and urged us to uphold whatever it is that distinguishes people from beasts, even if that means taking up arms. Now, on the other side, there were many arguments made against intervention. Firstly, humanitarian wars were rarely, if ever, fought for purely humanitarian reasons. National interest is almost always a critical factor governing the motives of the intervening states. Second, humanitarian intervention is a guise for a new era of colonialism. Third, breaches of sovereignty in the name of humanitarianism erode the principle of sovereignty that has successfully governed the world since the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648. Fourth, the problems in many of the conflicts in which proponents would like to see us intervene are either the direct or indirect consequence of European colonialism and Western interference to begin with. Perhaps it's time we stay away. And on and on. I won't read all of the points against intervention. We'll hear them from our guests. And at this point, I'd like to introduce them. We have Deborah Campbell sitting over here. She's the author of a book on the Israel-Palestine conflict and has written for Harper's, The Walrus, The Economist, The Guardian, and Adbusters, where she was formerly an associate editor. Since 2007, she has spent 5 months living with Iraqi refugees, mainly in Syria and Jordan, and she teaches at UBC. Thanks for coming, Deborah. Jane Cutter is a lifelong activist, hopefully a long life as well. Inshallah. For peace and social justice. She first became an organizer in the struggle against the reinstatement of registration for the draft. Since then, she has worked on many issues, including opposition to U.S. military interventions. She currently serves as the coordinator of the Seattle office of the Coalition to Act Now to Stop War and End Racism, a national coalition in the U.S. that started in September 2001 and has organized many national and regional marches. Thank you. Jürgen Dankwart identifies as a human rights activist, researcher, and educator. He worked with war resistors from the Vietnam War era coming to Canada and now with those opposing the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Dr. Dankwart is director of a Vancouver-based research institute, IVSI. More recently, his research has focused on state-sanctioned violence and factors that account for the perpetration of abuse. Thank you for coming. Riyad Musli was born and raised in Iraq until the age of 18, at which point his wife and their 3 children first immigrated to Canada in 1982. Riyad is active within the Arab community and for 12 years was the editor and publisher of the bilingual Arab monthly newspaper Al-Shuruq. He frequently appeared on TV, radio, and newsprint discussing Iraqi and Middle East issues. Riyad's father, Rashid Musli, was in fact jailed and later executed at the Palace of the End in 1970. Thank you for being here, Riyad.
Thank you.
And Peter Pronsos is a writer and activist for peace, the environment, and ending poverty. Born in San Francisco, he served on the board of Oxfam Canada and Vancouver's Peace and Justice Committee and teaches political science at Langara. A UBCP member, this summer he hopes to finish his book on the human condition and play baseball. Derek O'Keefe is co-chair of Vancouver's Stop War Coalition, a broad-based peace coalition made up of over 160 endorsing organizations and prominent individuals, and a member of the steering committee of the Canadian Peace Alliance. Derek is also a writer and the editor of Rabble.ca, a leading source of Canadian progressive news and analysis. And last but not least, Don Wright is a regional development coordinator with Amnesty International Canada, based at the Vancouver office. He works with Amnesty members and groups, the general public, and the media to promote respect for human rights and encourage taking action in response to the violation of human rights around the world. And we'll start off with you, Don.